Stephen, great to have you on the program.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks so much for having me on.
So first off, what do you make of this Rand Paul breaking from other Republicans? Not too surprising when it comes to foreign policy for me, but he's breaking off and he's agreeing with the president on this Cuba stuff.
Yeah, from what I can tell, Rand Paul is in many ways like his father, Ron Paul, in that they will usually, both of them usually side in favor of liberty, regardless of who else is with them on a particular issue. I think Ron Paul did it a little more often, and Rand Paul probably a little less frequently, but certainly on this particular issue with Cuba, I'm definitely glad to see as many people as possible aligning with whatever the right thing to do is, and in this case, it's to stop restricting people's travel and business in Cuba.
So I think the move is atrocious. I think it's flat out wrong. I think it's bad for America, and it's certainly not good for the Cuban people. This is going to make no difference when it comes to their oppression. You have a regime there that are throwing people in jail just for speaking out against them. This is a country where it stands for everything that America is against. And why we would move to this now, I have no idea. But you like the idea.
I just like the idea of the state getting out of the way and letting individuals decide where they want to spend their money and where they want to travel. If you don't think it's a good idea and if you are morally opposed to it, I would certainly support your right to not spend any of your money there and not travel there in any way, shape, or form, and not support any businesses that choose to do business in or with Cuba. But I think
Stephen,
that other people...
This really isn't about getting out of the way so Jay-Z and Beyonce can go vacation on the beach in Cuba. I mean, this is not a part where we're talking about people that make free decisions for themselves. We're talking about traveling to a communist regime that the strings are being pulled by the likes of China and Venezuela. This is a puppet regime. And Russia.
Yeah.
So I don't think...
Go ahead.
I said I think it's a bad move. I mean, do we let the state get out of the way when it comes to what ISIS wants to do?
Well, it depends where ISIS wants to do it. I think if if ISIS was to start blowing things up here, there would be so much outrage that there'd be no choice but to get involved. But I also think it's a mistake for U.S. military to get involved in ISIS affairs overseas.
All right, Stephen, this is the problem. And so let me just confirm one thing, what you said earlier. I think it's important, and I want our listeners to really listen to this. So you said you think that Rand Paul sides with his father, correct? He's on the same side of his father?
On this particular issue?
Or I'm asking on this particular issue, on other issues, is he like his father?
No, not always. Certainly not always. I think on some issues he's like his father, and on other ones he's not.
Because his father is a buffoon, and I worry that Rand Paul is just as buffoonish as his father is, and I think Rand Paul is dangerous because even the speech that you're giving now about letting ISIS do their own thing overseas, do you understand you and your family are going to get blown up at a mall someplace if we don't do something?
I think we're far more likely to get blown up in a mall if the U.S. government does intervene. I think we've seen time and again, and I guess this is just an issue where you and I are going to have to agree to disagree. But I think that obviously ISIS is a problem. Obviously they're completely irrational. But, if you meddle in other people's affairs long enough, they're going to do the wrong thing and try and blow you up.
They don't just try to blow us up. They're blowing American soldiers up. They're cutting off our freaking heads, for crying out loud.
You're absolutely right. It's terrible and it's atrocious. But again, I think this is problems for people in those regions to deal with, not for U.S. military to deal with.
Well, I love that going back to the Rand Paul conversation, that he used the term isolationist when he accused Marco Rubio of being an isolationist. This is something that we accuse the Paul family of, or being isolationists.
Sure.
Do you think your philosophy and the Paul's philosophy is that of isolation?
No, not at all. I would never categorize letting people spend their money the way they want as isolationists. I would say that the more you allow people to travel and to do business with other places and make those decisions for themselves, the less you're isolating yourself from the world.
Do you know that 190 other countries can travel to Cuba right now?
Yeah, I'm well aware that many other countries allow their people to travel to Cuba.
Well, that's why our embargo against Cuba has not worked. It's because 190 other countries are supplying that economy. If other countries would join us in shutting off the Castro regime, they would feel some real heat. But they haven't felt any heat. And so what did the United States get back in return for all of this? We give up 5 spies that have killed Americans, and we get nothing back in return. Nothing.
Well, I mean, it depends who you mean by we. Are you talking about the U.S. government or you and me personally? I think what you and I personally get is the ability to make decisions on our own instead of having any state decide these things for us.
All right. So you would like to see, when it comes to Rand Paul, are you a fan of his for president?
No, I think I disagree with too many things that he is in favor of to really support him. But on this particular issue, I agree with him.
All right, well, that's a total shocker. I'm happy to hear that, actually. All right, so we're talking with Stephen Aaron Gray. He is a libertarian spokesman and activist. He is the author of Ant Farm, a novel about what's bugging society. I want to play for you one clip from Rand Paul. This was what was so troubling. It was him talking about what caused World War II. Have you heard this before, when he blames it on America?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, let me hear it.
Okay, let's play it.
Thanks.
There are times when sanctions have made it worse. I mean, there are times leading up to World War II, we cut off trade with Japan. That probably caused Japan to react angrily. We also had a blockade on Germany after World War I, which may have encouraged some of their anger.
We provoked World War II. I had no idea until I just heard Rand Paul. We made Japan and Germany angry. That was the reason for World War II. This guy is dangerous. Stephen, please tell your libertarian friends to run as far away as they can from this idiot.
Well, I don't think he's an idiot. I just think he's wrong on some issues and right on some other ones. And the one that you and I are disagreeing on is his stance on Cuba. I would certainly not call him an idiot for his stance on Cuba. And listen, you may want to call me an idiot for my stance on the same thing, and certainly you're free to think what you want. I just think that people ought to be free to make their own decisions, spend their own money how they see fit. And of course, if anyone has a moral objection with anything that anybody in any country is doing, you should also be able to say, I'm not going to spend my money there. I think that the government of Cuba is quite deplorable, and I certainly wouldn't want to decide to spend my money supporting that regime. But if other people want to, I am not going to put them in jail if they decide to. And maybe that's where you and I disagree.
Yeah, I don't think the American people are putting anybody in jail for going on vacation in Cuba. The only problem is you got to go through Mexico to get there, and that's what Americans are doing. They can still go there freely. That's part of the reason why this whole thing didn't work. But I want your reaction. Do you think America caused World War II? Do you agree with Rand Paul on that take?
No, I don't think that the U.S. government directly caused World War II. I think some of the United States government's foreign policy probably exacerbated it in certain ways. I think the embargoes on Japan probably did. Now, the war would have probably happened anyway. Would it have lasted as long? Would it have been as brutal? That's debatable. I don't know for sure. Yeah, I don't think certainly the U.S. government did not directly and completely cause World War II.
All right. Well, that's good to hear. Look, I like a lot of things about the libertarian movement. I really do. But when it comes to foreign policy, I think you all are a bunch of ostriches with your head in the sand. No offense, Stephen, and I appreciate your right to feel the way you do. I also appreciate you coming on the show and talking about it.
Well, thank you. I wish you did respect my own personal choices for travel and trade. It seems like you don't want to, but agree to disagree, I guess.
No, if you want to travel to Syria, you're free to do that as well too, I guess.
Look, I don't plan to, but I think it's every person's decision, and nobody should be telling them we know what's best for you. Listen, at the end of the day, conservatives generally complain a lot about nanny state, but for some reason, so many conservatives want a nanny state to rule over us in this particular regard, and I just don't get the inconsistency.
Okay, you got to realize it has nothing to do with you. It's got to do with a rogue regime and a communist country. That's what it has to do with.
Well, but
it has to do with people that are being thrown in prison for speaking up, not about you wanting a vacation in Cuba. Now you're making me angry, Stephen Gray. You understand that? It's not about your vacation or you're able to sit back and smoke a cigar. It's about a country and their people that are being thrown in jail and in many cases wounded, maimed, and killed by a rogue regime. But I understand you want to smoke their cigars. Thank you, sir, for coming on the show.
I'm not a cigar smoker, but yeah, I just think people should be allowed to make their own decisions.
Thank you for coming on the show.
Making it for them.
Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for cutting me on.